thank everyone for coming today to help us celebrate my dad's 90th birthday, which was actually a week ago yesterday, June 4th. And many of you know my brother Mike, who's not able to be here with us today. He's still in the Army and is currently deployed to Afghanistan as a construction contracting officer in a forward operating base a little bit south of Kabul. But anyway, Mike sends his greetings by email. We're in very frequent contact with him, and asked me to say hello to all of you who know him, for him. This man standing right next to me, of course, you all know, the guest of honor, 90 years young, and he has a few remarks he'd like to make to everyone.
I want to thank all of you for coming to the birthday party. I'm surprised there's so many. I didn't know I had so many young friends. The party was planned and carried out by our son Terry and his family, and Mike he talked about, the other son, his wife Jane, and sons David and his wife Kimberly, and Douglas, the other son, and our niece Michelle. All of you people stand up. I mean, all of them. Now, I don't know what a 90-year-old is supposed to feel like, but I feel good. And I feel lucky. I've never had a serious illness. I've never had an operation. I've never had a serious injury. And I'm a very lucky man. But the luckiest day of my life was when I met a 19-year-old blonde, lovely blonde girl in a USO dance at the Will Rogers Airport, Catherine Jane Stevens. I almost didn't meet Kit because I was kind of tired. I'd been flying about 8 hours that day, but I went to the OSU dance to see if I could find any girl I wanted to dance with. And I didn't see anybody at first. Started to leave, and as I did, out of the corner of my eye, I saw that blonde head pass by. So I tagged in, and then between tags, that we danced all evening, and then we danced for the next month till after Christmas. And then she said I was getting too serious too soon, so we better stay away from each other for a while, which we did. But a few days, about a week or two after that, I had orders to go overseas, and I called her, and she hadn't called me to get back together, but I called her just for old time's sake, and went back to my airplane to take off, and the radio wasn't working. The radio man couldn't get it to do anything with it, so he said it had to take it into the shop for the night, and I was awaiting. I went back and called Kid again. I've been promoted to flight officer, and I invited her out to the club, the officers club, for dinner and a movie, and she came out. Another bit of luck was that their only car was still at home. Her dad worked in the oil field, and usually the car wasn't available, so she drove the car out. I couldn't go out because of security reasons. So we wrote about 100 letters or so in the year I was at home in combat, and the first thing I did when I got hit to the shores again back home was to call her and I was going to be in St. Louis for a while in the Army. Called her and invited, I told her to meet me in St. Louis. So we met in St. Louis, and then 3 days later we were married. Not in St. Louis, in Oklahoma City. So I tell the story that I was kind of shell-shocked. And I saw this guy asking me to say I do, and that's what had happened. So we've had a long and very happy marriage. Plan to have longer if we can. I was a staff sergeant pilot when I met her, and staff sergeant pilot is an enlisted man instead of an enlisted man pilot, I might say.
Babe, let me say something. Before I met him, he was at Salt Lake briefly and danced with a girl, and he told her he was a staff sergeant pilot and then he would become a flight officer. He said, I don't know what that is. And he said, it's just lower than a second lieutenant. And she stopped dancing and said, there's nothing lower than a second lieutenant. You may talk.
Well, when I got out of flight school, about 26 of us, and they sent us to Blythe, California, to learn to fly twin-engine fighter bomber, an A-20, and we learned to fly the plane, and then we started doing mock bombing and strafing of General Patton's army, who was out there too, getting ready to invade North Africa, and we decided we'd see when we were bombing them. We decided to put 5-pound sacks of flour and drop those as bombs. But when one of those sacks of flour hit a GI on the ground in the back of the head, it wasn't very soft. So they started throwing things at us, and I figured they'd be shooting at us. I told the captain that I think we ought to do something else, and he agreed. But then we flew those A-20s to Oklahoma.
You were going to talk about Charlie.
Oh, yeah. At Blythe, there's a guy, a mechanic, who kept those planes going, and he didn't have any failure. And he's here in this room right now. Charlie stands up.
What you haven't told them is, you guys, when you were flying planes that during Patton's maneuvers, you'd fly down there and cut their antennas off with your wings.
But Charlie is a year older than I am, and still working. He's working on cars for Don Bolton, and plays golf just in today.
Dave,
Yes?
get closer to the mic,
Oh.
please.
Forgot about that. Okay. But I told you we're bombing during the fighting the troops, and that was pretty scary, because Patton didn't fool around too much. Somebody got on his back. In fact, the story was that he called a GI down from a light pole working on a wire, and shoot him out for being out of uniform and asked him what his outfit was. And he said, I'm so-and-so, and I'm working for Southwest Electric Company. Stay with you a bit. I was trying to think.
Closer.
Mainly the things that happened that were I was lucky. Of course, I told you about Kit, but strangely enough, soldiers today wouldn't believe it, but we just got an order from the top to gave us a little list of service stations and told us to fly those A-20s to Rabat, Morocco, and that's pretty far down and across the Atlantic Ocean. But we flew them, and I didn't get very far the first time though. When I got to well, anyway.
Shreveport.
Pardon?
Shreveport.
Yeah, Shreveport. Both engines failed. I was about a half a mile out from the runway, but I was high enough that I could glide in for a landing. And the mechanics found out that it was a new airplane, just had about 28 hours on it. The mechanics said that the oil rings at the factory had been installed upside down, so it pumped all the oil out of the engine. And about the next thing, we had to go fly down to Homestead, Florida, and jump off into the islands, fly down to Brazil, and along the Brazil coast to Natal. And I had a group with me at one time that had a navigator in the crew, but I've also, those people got away from me, and I just had to go on by myself without a navigator. But flew across the Atlantic Ocean to Ascension Island, and the next morning got up ready to leave and started it. The engine and oil flew everywhere out of one of the engines, so there was another engine failure. And if it hadn't while I was coming up the day before in the ocean, it could have been fatal. And we got to, well, things kind of lightened up out of Ascension. 2 or 3 of the other guys caught up with me, 3 of them, they were from Texas, the pilots. And we were flying along, singing Texas songs over the radio to each other. And after a while, their voice cut in on and said, "Would you blessed Yanks get off the air?" Said, "We're having a war over here, you know." So we made it on into Liberia and on up the coast of North Africa to the Rabat. But the A-20s weren't having much luck in the Tunisian battle with the Germans in North Africa. Most of them had been shot down. So they took me out of an A-20 and put me in a B-17, which probably saved my life. And I flew 51 missions in the B-17 out of Italy and out of North Africa and then Italy. And on the last mission, the tail gunner called me and said there were 3 fighter planes lined up behind him and out of his range. He couldn't shoot them. So they were kind of strange. He didn't know what, he hadn't seen them before. And about that time I saw something go over my wing, right? And burst about a quarter of a mile ahead. Pretty good explosion. On the other, and the 2 of them, something went on the co-pilot side too. And then I said, well, the guys missed. The next one will probably get us. The next one shot just the same way, over the wings. And then the third one, I couldn't believe it. The third one did the same thing. None of them hit us. they were shooting rockets, and one rocket had hit that airplane and would destroy it and everybody in it. So, if you don't think I'm lucky, then you're wrong. So, that was my last mission. I was glad to get home. I wanted to get home to the kid. And strangely enough, when we got our orders out of Italy to catch a ship to go home in, we had to hitchhike all the way from Italy down into North Africa again. They'd given us a paper that said we had a right to ride any military outfit that came along. The last one was a British truck. We rode in the back of it, and it worked out pretty well. The Brits said they were going to stop on the way down there and said have some tea. Wanted to know if we wanted to have tea with them. So that's pretty interesting. Well, the minute I got the ship, by the way, had the zigzag all the way home for submarine possibilities. And when I hit the shore, the first thing I did is call Kit and tell her to meet me in St. Louis. And we went from there to Oklahoma City, and were married about 3 days later. And I guess that's the end of it. But I feel like Lou Gehrig, the baseball player. I'm about the luckiest man in the world. Thank you.
Happy birthday to